Hello, this is Falling from Team Liquid, and this video is about spells and the role that Smartcasting has in creating a compositional problem or too great an impact on the game, and specifically to do with spells that root units to the ground. And so I had spent a little bit of time in one of my other videos talking about what makes a unit more microable versus more A-movie, and one of the things that was at issue is burst damage. So it comes in, there's that attack, and then there's time in between where you can move the unit and you're not losing any damage, and then how quickly in between attacking and being able to move again does the unit have. So in the case of Vulture, quite quick, and that encourages microing versus A-moving. And you can get the same thing with it's all sort of variants of the same sort of idea, whether it's Mutalisk Micro that we're talking about, where we're coming in and you once again have that burst damage, trying to pick off units like that, and there's allows you to go get in and out, and it's worth it to keep on keeping your units constantly moving. Or you could look at Dragoon Micro, assuming there's any tanks left. So Dragoon Micro, you have to go forward, you hit hold position, and then you're able to micro back. And so it's that burst damage that allows you to get the shot off and then move immediately back. Or if we wanted to look at Reaver, this is all the same sort of thing. We don't have any units yet, but anyways, yeah, with the Reaver, you attack your target, it gets the damage, oh there we go, and then you pick it up right away, just like that. So there's a lot of that that's missing from StarCraft 2. There's just a lot less of that sort of micro. And in its place we have tons more spells. Spells on absolutely pretty much everything. Spells or abilities if you want. Blink would be, I guess, an ability instead. And in particular you get a lot of these spells that lock down movement. So Fungal, Force Fields, Concussive Shell slows things down. Time Warp is the new one that slows. Graviton Beam, and I guess Vortex, although that's kind of in a category of its own. And the similarity that these all have is they prevent your opponent from moving. So whereas in the other case where I'm moving back and forth, and my other opponent is free to move, in this case we have a spell that we come in and we lock it down. And so the immediate thing that people talk about is like, well, you know, Brood War had the same sort of spells that that stopped movement, and that's true. But if you look at the difference of how predominant each of those sort of spells are, so this isn't a very expensive sort of force, but it's a lot harder to go in and reasonably be able to. I'm going to have to find it. To go in here, and either I have to do this clone or sort of individually do it to be able to lock it down. And one thing you'll note as a bit of a side is that these have some pretty terrible damage. So whereas, and you could look at the Arbiter, I'll just freeze something nearby. And it's unable to move, but if you actually look at the damage that the Arbiter has, it's pretty poor. It could be sitting there for quite a while. And again, for the Zerg, you have this will slow down movement, and this will damage units, but they're not the same thing. So that's one thing. But the issue of Smartcasting is it creates a compositional imbalance, not a racial imbalance, although that's possible, but I don't really care about that so much because Blizzard will always patch that. to eventually work it out. But the sort of, I would argue, unhealthy impact or prevalence that these sorts of units have it. And the problem is this, is that I move in and then I stop your movement units from moving. And so I dictate how your units move. Versus, if we just go over to this one, in this situation with attack retreat micro, I moved my Mulix in, I've got burst damage, I attack the turret, attack it again, and it blows up. Then the Marines come in and they stim and I run away, and both of us are controlling. There's an interplay between those units and my units, and we're both controlling. And this is partly what makes the, for instance, Marines versus Baneling micro so interesting, is both players are microing as well as they can, and neither is interfering with the other's ability to micro. And that's part of what makes it so very exciting. And I could be stupid and run into there and these things would just die. And that's not to say that there's no role for these sorts of things. And that's sort of the main thing. It's not that these spells should be got rid of, it's just they play too great a role in the matchup. If I had just had what we have with Smartcasting, where I just select all these, hit L and just start clicking as like a madman, and absolutely everything in the army gets locked down, it's no longer a battle between one player interaction with the other, where we're both equally able to attack back and forth. Instead, it's I am controlling what your units do. And the greater, or the more often that happens, the more frustrating that matchup's going to feel. I can guarantee you, Stasis in Brood War, Terrans are not terribly happy with Stasis. You know, it blocks a lot of their tanks, and it becomes very frustrating. But it's a late game unit. If it's at full energy, you can get 2 of them off, or if you get EMP'd, then you don't really have, you get nothing for it, and it's a pretty weak unit on its own. But if I could just run in with a huge mass of these things and just hit L, click, 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 it just creates a too big of a role within the matchup that, yeah, as I was saying before, it's not unit versus unit, player versus player. It's one player dictating how the other player, how the other player's units work. And the more that happens, it's just, for instance, a Neural Parasite. If you think of, if Neural Parasite was as common as fungal growth, or as common as force fields, it would be terribly frustrating. The Protoss would never be able to control their units, and it could be balanced around that idea, but it would not be a fun experience, because you'd never properly be able to control your units. And I could go on this, but I think I'll stop there.